So today's question is, how do you tell someone something that they don't want to hear? And how do you get that message to kind of go in? I'm thinking about maybe like if someone's a little overweight, or maybe they're drinking just a little bit too much, or they're smoking, maybe it's time they gave up. It's really, really tough to get that message over without them sort of literally or figuratively stopping their ears up. I mean, I've had it many, many times when people have sort of said to me, you know, you should maybe go to the gym a bit. I'm like, come on, really? I'm an intellectual. I don't do that. You know, I can always find a reason. There's always a reason. You know, and you never want to hear it, because it's not just about the way it sort of bruises your ego, but it's sort of someone's questioning your whole belief system, and it's very personal, isn't it? And it's very upsetting, and what you desperately don't want to do is to have to acknowledge that they might be right, even if deep down you know they're right. In fact, that's when it's worst, is when you know they're right, and then you have to just find a way to shut it down, because you don't want to know, you don't want to think about it. And sometimes it's hard. Conversely, if you make the decision first, so maybe like you decide to give up cake or drinking or smoking, and all your peers around you, you know, they're doing that, and they don't want then you to do that, and they're constantly trying to bring you back into the flock and sort of say, have a fag or have some cake. Not that they necessarily all talk like that, but you get my point. It's very hard to stray from that norm, whether it's one just amongst a group of friends or society at large or the planet. It's very, very hard to kind of break those conventions. You'll never guess where I'm going with this. And I'm not, before I say this next bit, let me just be totally unequivocal about this. I'm not saying that the consumption of meat, it can be equated to slavery. I am not saying that. But it's quite eerie how similar the arguments are. The ones put forward by staunch meat eaters who don't want to hear it, they don't want to have the conversation, and people who used to advocate slavery. It's always the same arguments. It's the animals are taken care of. You know, they have a good life. What would they do in the wild? If we freed them, where would we put them? Abuses are very few and far between. And of course, it's the natural order. There's around 60 billion animals killed a year for meat. That's not hugely natural. It's 3,000 a second. But we don't want to stop the party. Love them burgers. I know. And that's what brings us back to the question. How do you tell someone something that they don't want to hear? Even if it's for their own good, how do you get past the rampant ego of a person? Because the person is great. It's the ego that's kind of going, no, don't listen. There's nothing to see here. How do you penetrate someone's ego and that self-protection mechanism and appeal to their calm, good-natured self and allow them to defeat their own ego to actually engage in the conversation meaningfully? How can I, or Kerry McCarthy, right? Because this is what's prompted all this. Kerry McCarthy said, you know, maybe we should see meat eating like smoking. We should encourage people to try and give it up. And isn't that what it was like before the smoking ban? Do you remember the hysteria about, I won't be told where I can't smoke my cigarettes and stuff? Now, by common consensus, we're all like, actually, yeah, it's probably a good idea. Probably. It's the same sort of thing, really. It's very difficult. How do you quietly float this notion that we could be doing less harm? And how do we do it without making people angry? Because, you know, when it comes to other harm, there's quite a broad consensus. You know, there should be less war. We shouldn't mug people so much. There should be less pollution. What is it about this harm inflicted on animals and on ourselves and on the planet with all the kind of CO2 emissions? What is it about this harm that people, why does the buck stop there? Is it because it's about food? Is it that kind of primal thing, that quite protectionist, survivalist thing about food? Because we're not in a survival situation anymore. We're in fact at the first point in humanity where we have a choice, a really easy choice about what we decide to eat. And how can we give each other this path to taking a choice that does less harm? How can we do that in a way that doesn't look condescending or confrontational or is sort of trying to make people feel bad? People shouldn't feel bad. It's a societal norm. It's just that There might be another way. Anyway. What have I unleashed? Do please leave some comments below, and if it's okay, not the one sort of saying, well, we're supposed to eat meat because X, Y, and Z and cavemen and natural order and blah blah. Not the arguments about veganism, but actually thoughts about how do we have this dialogue where we don't both of us walk away going, yes, well, I think I was right in the first place, yes, and all my choices have been validated and I've examined them. How do we actually stop the egos, and how do we talk? I don't know. Hey, maybe through YouTube we're going to bring about world peace. That would be an achievement for a Monday morning. Anyway, thanks for watching. Do subscribe. There'll be funnies tomorrow and less of this self-righteous pontificating shit. Thank you very much. Bye!